Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are tackling what might be one of the Bible's most challenging books, Leviticus. But we're going to look at it in a totally new way. Not as a dusty old rule book, but as a kind of divine map.
So let's just jump right in. When you think of Leviticus, what comes to mind? Probably a lot of strange, outdated rules, right? Things that seem pretty irrelevant to us today. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if it's not a rule book at all, but a detailed roadmap? A guide for how people could actually get close to a holy God.
The source material we're drawing from has this really cool way of looking at it. It calls Leviticus a divine operating system. Think about the OS on your phone or computer. It's that background platform that makes everything else work, right? Well, that's the idea here. Leviticus is this foundational system built on 3 core pillars that lets all the apps, in this case acts of worship, run the way they're supposed to.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get a handle on this whole operating system idea. Then, we'll look at its 3 main pillars: covenant, place, and priesthood. After that, we'll see how the worship apps actually run on this system. And finally, we'll get to the ultimate system upgrade that this was all leading up to.
Okay, first up, the divine operating system. Our source calls it the structure of grace, and that's a huge clue. Before we even talk about sacrifices or rituals, we have to get this one thing straight. The whole setup is a gift. It's a platform God designed and put in place before anyone did anything to earn it. And this idea right here? It completely flips our normal way of thinking upside down. So often, we think of religion or worship as something we have to do to get God's attention or approval. But what Leviticus is showing us from this perspective is that God makes the first move. He builds the whole stage, this beautiful ordered system, and then invites us to come and participate. So, with that foundation of grace in mind, let's look at the first pillar of this operating system, the covenant. You can think of it like the system's foundational user agreement. It basically sets the terms for who is involved and why they get to be.
Now, this isn't some cold corporate terms of service agreement. The source really emphasizes that this covenant made at Mount Sinai was a blood bond. It established Israel as God's family. It's personal. So your access to God wasn't based on how good you were. It was based on the simple fact that you were already part of the family.
But, and this is key, the system had built-in limitations. It ran on the blood of animals, which had to be offered over and over again. That was a pretty big hint that this wasn't the final version. It was a shadow, pointing forward to the real thing, a new, permanent covenant, one that would be sealed by a single, perfect sacrifice and create an unbreakable bond for everyone.
Okay, so the relationship is established. You're in the family. Now, where do you meet? The system needed a specific location for this divine-human interaction to happen. And that brings us to pillar number 2, the place. Think of it as the sanctified server where the connection goes live. This special place, first the portable tabernacle and later the permanent temple, was a physical model of heavenly realities. But here's the thing, it wasn't a neutral space. The source makes it clear that the sins of the people, even unintentional ones, could sort of pollute it. So it had to be regularly cleansed, purified with blood, to keep that connection to a holy God open and safe.
And right there, you see another big limitation. You could clean a building, but what about a person's conscience? The system couldn't really fix the guilt inside someone. This was all pointing to the ultimate upgrade, where Christ himself becomes the true meeting place. The whole focus of purification shifts from a physical location to the human heart itself.
All right, so we've got the relationship, the who, and we've got the location, the where. But how do you actually connect and do it safely? That's where the third and final pillar comes in, the priesthood. These are your authorized system admins.
It's easy to think of priests as gatekeepers, right? People meant to keep you out. But in this system, they were the exact opposite. They were designed to be a bridge. God appointed them to mediate, to teach, to handle the offerings, and to make sure that when people approached God, it was done in a way that was safe, orderly, and legitimate.
But you guessed it, there was a limitation here too. The priests were just people. They were human. They made mistakes, they had to offer sacrifices for their own sins, and of course they died. The system was practically screaming for a better solution, a perfect, eternal high priest. And that's the role Christ fills with what the Bible calls an indestructible life, mediating for us always.
Okay,
So we've built our operating system. We had the three pillars: covenant, place, and priesthood. Now we get to see how it all works together. It's time to run the actual apps of worship, the different kinds of offerings.
And this chart just lays it out so clearly. See how each pillar connects to a specific app. The covenant, being about relationships, is the foundation for the restitution offering, making things right with others. The place, which needs to stay pure, is connected to the purification offering. And the priesthood, the mediators, they facilitate the offerings of celebration and even total self-offering. It's not random. It's all one big interconnected system.
But here's where it gets really, really interesting. It's the order you have to run these apps in. You'd think the first thing you do is try to get right with God, wouldn't you? But this path of worship, well, it takes a very surprising turn. And here it is. This is wild. The system actually insists that you repair your broken relationships with other people before you come to purify yourself before God. That restitution offering, the one for when you've wronged your neighbor, it's step one. That tells you so much about what God actually cares about, doesn't it?
So all these limitations we've been talking about, the animal sacrifices that had to be repeated, the priests who weren't perfect, the physical temple, they weren't bugs in the system. They were features. They were designed to be shadows, teaching tools that pointed beyond themselves to the real thing, the ultimate system upgrade.
And in Christ, every single one of those limitations gets its perfect, permanent fix. The covenant is now eternal, and it's for everybody. The true holy place is thrown wide open. He is the one, final, perfect priest. The purification he brings isn't for a building, it's for our own conscience. And boom, all the ethnic barriers to getting to God, they're gone.
And that brings us to the most powerful takeaway from all of this. That whole divine operating system, the covenant, the place, the priesthood, it's not a process or a building anymore. The entire platform, the whole system, now lives in a person. It's all accessible in Jesus Christ.
So we're left with this one big question. That old system in Leviticus was like a map that showed you where to go, but also showed you all the dead ends. But now, in its fulfillment, the path is just open. This ancient roadmap, now fully brought to light, isn't asking you to strive or try harder. It's just an invitation to walk on a path of grace that's already been cleared for you.